Hey everyone, it's Michael Kikle. I hope you're doing well today, and I'm finally reviewing a movie that I loved as a kid. It's from 2003, from the director slash writer of the Ghost Rider film, too, that I also really enjoyed back in the day and still do. This is the Daredevil film starring Ben Affleck from 2003, and I have not seen this in ages. I have not. And just so you know up front, I'm talking mainly about the theatrical cut. I'll probably throw in some of my thoughts about the director's cut that people really prefer. Personally, I prefer the theatrical version despite its plot holes. I could do without the Coolio story from the director's cut. So I have to really put this movie into perspective. For folks who were not there, you younger folks especially, being a kid in the 90s like I was, the closest thing we really had in live action for superheroes, aside from Christopher Reeve's Superman, which I didn't see till I got to like my teen years, the Batman films, which I only grew up on forever, and Batman and Robin, nothing else was really out yet. Around the time when the first X-Men movie came out, and then not too long after that, Spider-Man. And not too long after that, you had Hulk from Ang Lee, and you had this. I don't think you understand how we did not have much in live action. All this MCU and DCEU stuff that you've seen, it was a whole new ballpark in a very cool way that I love and I admire in a lot of ways. But the more the time goes on, the less and less I want the universe stuff going on. I want individual standalone movies and series. I really do. And I decided to rewatch this the other night. And I put it on because I've always liked it. I've kind of talked it up a lot to my wife. I wish I still had my original DVD copy. I don't. I talked it up to her and I put it on. And she didn't hate it either. She thought it was pretty cool for what it was. But I have to tell you, I firmly lean into the mindset that I much prefer having like Batman by himself in Batman films, or Batman and Robin, with his rogues gallery and whatnot, or Superman being secluded by himself, or Spider-Man being by himself. I prefer that so much more when I go back and watch these older superhero films from when I was a kid. I think it's so much better, I'll be honest with you, than like anything coming out mostly nowadays. This is not as good as something like Endgame, or Infinity War, or even Age of Ultron for me personally. But I have a very soft spot in my heart for this Daredevil movie. I love Ben Affleck, and I've always loved the costume from this. For kids, again, who don't understand, the only time we had ever seen Daredevil in live action, as far as I can remember, was the Trials of the Incredible Hulk movie from the Bill Bixby TV show back in the 80s, that had Daredevil in it, but he was like just in the black costume that you saw in the first season of the newer Netflix Daredevil show. And yeah, Charlie Cox, I think, plays a better Daredevil. I think Ben Affleck could have been a good one. I think he's a way better Batman. But I think he could have been a good Daredevil if he had had the right script. Same thing goes for Jennifer Garner being Elektra in the film. I think there's a lot of people, especially poor Colin Farrell, who plays Bullseye in this movie. God almighty, there's so many problems with this film. As the theatrical cut or the director's cut, it doesn't really matter. I don't think the director's cut improves on much, and I really don't think it matters in the sense because it makes it a little bit longer, but to its detriment, in my opinion. I don't think filling in plot holes saves a movie. That's just my personal opinion. Then there are movies that people defend that have tons of plot holes, like The Dark Knight Rises, that I think is just kind of next to unwatchable in a lot of ways because of the problems in it. And the lack of logic, especially following up something so logical like Batman Begins and Dark Knight. Dark Knight being a masterpiece, Dark Knight Rises is a total turd, you know what I mean? So anyway, Daredevil, I always remember loving it. It had so many cool like fight scenes and stuff from what I remembered. That's something I can contest and rewatch. But basically, this is an origin story to an extent, mostly in those flashback moments that take up like 10 minutes of this hour and 45-minute long movie. But it kind of is showing, Matt doing his day-to-day life. You have Jon Favreau in here playing Foggy Nelson, which is kind of cool. I forgot that he was in this. You don't have like Karen being up in the front, like she's in like one scene of the whole movie, which is good in my opinion, because I don't really care about Karen all that much. But it's mainly Daredevil just kind of doing his thing. And kind of beginning to do like many people, searching out for this kingpin of crime, who's played by Michael Clark Duncan, which is crazy, from the Green Mile. This is the first time, as far as I remember, that Wilson Fisk was ever shown as a black man. But Michael Clark Duncan, he was a humongous dude for folks who don't remember him. Huge, muscular, strong, tall as hell. The dude was enormous, and he was a good actor, and I like him as Kingpin. I don't care what anybody says. I think he's good. I like him more than Vincent D'Onofrio, despite the script of this movie being a fucking mess. But it's kind of like a Daredevil falling in love with Jennifer Garner's Elektra at some point, and kind of this weird... At first, it doesn't really present that Elektra's family are kind of, I guess, mobby people. They kind of makes that clear, and I don't know. It's really goofy in that respect. Don't disregard this. It is a messy movie, and many, many people die because of Daredevil. Many people get seriously wounded because of Daredevil. But the film maintains what I like about Daredevil. The very little I know about him, I've never really read any Daredevil comics, just so you know. Yet, anyway. But what I like about Daredevil, I know from this movie and Spider-Man the Animated Series. Those two things are really where Daredevil shines for me, personally. I like Charlie Cox, but I don't like the TV show. You know what I mean? I'm sorry, that's the truth, though. It's got some good things, just not a hardcore fan. This movie, with that kind of earlier CGI, it still looks cool. I love that they keep a lot of the Catholicism stuff for Matt. I think it's mostly used very well in a serious way, but not enough to make Matt think more about what he's doing and why he's doing what he does. But I love little interchanges, or I guess discussions, whatever, between he and his priest at this Catholic church. And at one point, the priest even mentions, I'm not even a fan of your costume, because he's a devil. I thought that was really fun, and I still like the costume. I don't care how rough it looks on this DVD copy that I have. I still like it. I think it's cool. It's kind of sleek. I love the scenes of Daredevil just kind of going back home after a long night and taking his clothes off and getting into that isolation chamber thing, which I never understood why Matt had to do that as a kid. I don't know if that's a thing from the comics or not. I suspect it would be something weird from a Frank Miller era or an Ultimates era. I don't know, but still never thought about it when I was a kid of why he would need to do that. But it's easy. It's very subtle why. I think coloring Ben Affleck's head red is a little weird. It's kind of odd to look at. I guess I never noticed it as a kid. I must have been as blind as Matt Murdock to not notice that, because it's very shiny in a very Chucky the Doll way. You know what I mean? The contacts they give Ben Affleck too are very odd for his eyes to make him look blind. He's not doing the blind people thing either, where they're just kind of looking all over the room and shit. So that's a little bit, whatever. It's a little bit messy. But he's on the hunt, like the police are, for this kingpin of crime. Kind of encounters him here and there. But there's also eventually a hitman named Bullseye, played by Colin Farrell, that may be the worst adaptation of Bullseye I've ever seen in my life. I remember being in the theaters and this movie terrifying me when I saw it as a child. I was about 9 years old, I believe. Maybe 8. And it horrified me. There's a lot of gruesome shit in this film. The theatrical cut, the director's cut, it doesn't really matter. But there are things like people getting holes shot through their hands by bullets, and old ladies getting killed with peanuts, and Bullseye throwing needles at people's throats and stuff, pencils. There was a little bit of blood in this movie, a lot of death in this movie, even if it was on screen or off screen. There was a lot of stuff in here that was kind of shocking to me as a kid. And looking back, this is one of those movies, kind of like the Christopher Reeves Superman films, and kind of like even some of the MCU stuff. This is something that a kid is going to like I did when I was a kid. And the hardcore fans who've been reading comics forever, who are adults now, they're going to hate it. And then, again, me as an adult and as a teen, I guess more of as an adult, just out of high school, I watched the Netflix show and it bored the hell out of me. And I can't go back and watch it. I just can't do it. I just don't care about what's happening in that show. Despite how well shot it is, I like Drew Goddard. I love that they brought in Punisher, so on and so on. But I fucking cannot do it because I just don't like that show. I just prefer this. I would have loved to have had a bunch of Daredevil shows or movies in this case. But with how lacking of a plot there is and how Matt just kind of wanders around and does stuff and fights crime, which is cool. I really love that about it. It's something that this movie gets right, in my opinion, with the style of it. It has a lot of that 90s, 2000s Evanescence style, plus Evanescence is on the soundtrack quite a bit with Amy Lee singing, which is great. I love that. But the style of the movie is something that, again, the same guy who directed and wrote this, who did Ghost Rider, it gets the same kind of feel. Not as 2000s as this, but I like that this man brings a style to his movies. Nothing classy like a Nolan, nothing ultra creative in a surprising way like James Gunn kind of does. But I love what he does with this and Ghost Rider. But Bullseye is a terrible decision. I don't know who decided to have Bullseye. I guess not having a costume is kind of a whatever thing. But having him have literally like a carved bullseye into his forehead when he's introed into the film, at least in the theatrical cut. I don't remember about the director's cut. In the theatrical cut, he has like a beanie on. He wears this long, goofy coat. He does this hilarious, goofy shit. I remember at one point, I think he killed somebody. Maybe Elektra's dad in the movie. I know that's a spoiler, but still. And he like pointed at the guy. He didn't say a word. He pointed at the guy and was like, ah. And then he pointed at his own bullseye forehead and was like, ah. And then he was like pointing at his chest. He was like, oh yeah. Like that. And he just took off, right? Bullseye, I don't blame Colin Farrell because he's an amazing actor. He really is. Just like Ben Affleck is. Just like I even like Jennifer Garner, to be honest with you. I think she's good in here for what she's given, but it's not a good script. It's just not. It should have been rewritten by somebody else. But I like the style that it has, so I think the director should have been on this project. Colin Farrell's a good actor. He is hamming it up in this movie, and not in the great way that like Jack Nicholson playing Joker was. Not like that. It's not like a good, like, I can't wait for this guy to come back on screen because he makes me have fun. It's not like that, unless you're able to just straight out make fun of it. You can't take him serious. And you shouldn't really take this movie seriously, like a lot of these early 2000s superhero movies. But you especially cannot take this one seriously with how goofy it is. But I still like it. I still think the soundtrack is cool. You have pretty rough, again, I kind of mentioned this briefly, pretty rough fight scenes. There are some that are cool. There are some, I would say mostly, that are goofy as hell. The one that you know of is the New York City Park kind of dance with Jennifer Garner, where she's trying to beat up a blind man in a very creative way. They're running up and down like fucking playground equipment and stuff. It's awful. I loved it as a kid. I thought it was cool. It's one of those things advertised all over the place and shown as a behind-the-scenes scene. But it's terrible. In hindsight, it's really poorly done. There's a fight towards the end with Daredevil and Kingpin. Super lame. Super lame. Do not like that at all. But I still have this fond memory of this movie to my heart that still makes me enjoy watching it. The way it's shot, the feel. Again, it's like that first X-Men film. Even X2. Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3. It's this time frame of these kinds of movies and how they felt. And having these heroes by themselves, I prefer it. I just do. I really like watching this. It's just fun to watch. It's got a nice sense of humor sometime. I love when Foggy and Matt are just chilling somewhere and kind of trying to prank each other and stuff. There are moments where I'm like, Foggy, how do you not realize this guy is not as blind as he says he is? Why would you not even question the guy? You know? But the movie is really, really goofy. One of my best memories about this film, I got to see it in the theaters with my mom, if I remember correctly. And not too long after that, it did another run at a local kind of theater thing. I think it was called Cinema Cafe, if I remember. It's not around anymore. But I think there's still chains still around. This was a theater, kind of like these Alamo Steakhouse things, or Alamo movie theaters, or whatever they're called. I have a friend that works at one. And those are a place where you can go, you watch a movie, and during the movie, the food that you ordered actually comes out. And I'm talking like burgers and fries. I remember the burgers at this place being so good and seasoned so well in an amazing way. And I got a really juicy burger during watching this movie again. But the movie petrified me as a kid. They really did. There was a lot of shit in here that really horrified me as a kid, because it's not just a straight up kids film, even for a PG-13 movie. It's a little edgy for its day, kind of like Spider-Man, kind of like X-Men was, kind of like Hulk even was, with how stupid that movie was. I mean, you had Hulk fighting dogs that I think bit him in the balls one time, if I remember correctly. These movies were very, very odd when they came out, and Daredevil just adds into that. They were not as serious until, I would say, in my opinion, despite what happens in Spider-Man and here, they were not taken as seriously by the audience or the filmmakers until Batman Begins came out, and especially when Dark Knight came out. That revolutionized everything from Spider-Man movies and the reboots to a little bit of the MCU with Winter Soldier, not too long after that. There was a lot of change up, man. It was pretty crazy seeing what happened with these superhero films. But I still like watching Daredevil. It's never going to get old to me. It's never going to be bad to me, despite it having terrible moments in it. But the origin stuff, again, I don't hate that stuff, but I don't know how you could do anything else with a sequel to make it good. I don't know who you'd bring in as the bad guy. This was still at that time where we had this rule that you had to have like 2 or 3 villains in a superhero movie. That's stupid. But it's fun. It was fun here, despite how terrible Bullseye is. But everybody else, I think, is pretty fine, despite the script being a mess. I think Ben Affleck could have been even better if they'd given him a good script, because he's a great actor. Jennifer Garner, same thing. Michael Clarke Duncan, same thing. Colin Farrell, same thing. It has a lot that works for me. I would say most of the movie works for me, but most of the time, you have to take it with the memory of when it came out. I could see kids nowadays hating this compared to a lot of the MCU stuff. But that cheesiness to it is great. Like, you can't tell me you don't love the scene where Jennifer Garner is training to become Elektra for one night, and she's hanging out and cutting sandbags open with her daggers to bring me to life by Evanescence. You can't tell me that was not badass when it came out. I loved it. Everybody my age loved it. Say what you will, but we all enjoyed that. So, anyway, I was glad to rewatch it. I had a good time, and I think it's worth the time if you haven't seen it before. But I recommend watching the theatrical cut. A lot of people, again, they try to put the director's cut, in this place like Zack Snyder's Justice League, which I think is a whole different ballgame. It's a whole different movie from the theatrical cut of that. You could argue it's the same thing with the director's cut for Daredevil. It's really not. It's really, really not. There's just a whole court case thing that ties more into the movie that I could not possibly care less about. But it does come across a little less goofy, but to me it makes the movie more boring. And apparently that was the movie that was supposed to come out that the studio refused to put out and they butchered, that the director wanted to make. So you can argue about that all day long. Creators' rights and whatever, if you think that's a thing. For me, I'm cool with the theatrical cut. I like the style of it. I like the fun it has. I like the goofy-ass jokes. I love the costume. That's really all I need. Even the CGI holds up really well for this, compared to what people say a lot of these 2000 films have in them. And I think it's still really sick for what it has. But anyway, let me know what you think about the 2003 Daredevil down below. I'm sure that you like the Charlie Cox show and stuff more. I probably will never get around to watching it unless I just finish season 2, because I love Punisher. Punisher is my boy. I will watch anything with Punisher in it. TV show, movies, anything. So, yeah. I want to get into some more Daredevil comics after reading this. I know it's going to be completely different, but it would be sick. This movie feels like an Ultimate Universe Marvel on the screen for Daredevil. That's what it feels like. Just from my small amount of exposure to Ultimate Spider-Man, that's what this movie feels like, now that I think about it. So anyway, thank you all for watching, guys. God bless you all. Catch you later, and goodbye.